Hello everyone and welcome to this Shadowbringers Advanced Dragoon preview, brought to you from the 5.0 media tour that I recently attended in London with a chance to sit down with an early build of the new expansion. We're going to explore here all of the changes and the updated rotation for Dragoon in Shadowbringers, but do please remember that this is all development footage, subject to adjustment and changes between now and the full release. What you're seeing here right now is our attempts against the Ilmeg A-rank hunt, O Porist Poldia, with members of the media and EU community team. You can and should blame our ultimate failure on Clem. Thanks, Clem. To get right into it, I was pleased to see that the core identity of Dragoon hasn't been compromised from Stormblood. Dragoon has felt great for the past 2 years, and it still does. The most significant and immediately salient changes are the absence of both heavy thrust and impulse drive. You still have your basic 5-part combos, but each one now begins with true thrust. The removal of heavy thrust makes the rhythm of the core rotation feel slightly different, and it honestly made me lose track of whether I was up to chaos thrust or full thrust a few times at first, but this didn't take long to get used to. Now, we can't put too much stock into the potencies displayed in this build, since the systems for calculating damage from potencies is being completely overhauled for Shadowbringers, but we can safely assume that the loss of the heavy thrust buff is being compensated for across the potency of other abilities. It is also worth noting that Disembowel now buffs the Dragoon's personal DPS by 10%, rather than reducing the target's piercing resistance, as all such damage type resistance debuffs are being removed from the game to ease the perceived restrictions of meta synergy in endgame content. I know a lot of people were hoping that Dragonfire Dive would start proccing Mirage Dive and granting eye stacks alongside Jump and Spine Shatter, but we've actually moved in the opposite direction. At level 74, we'll be receiving a trait which converts Jump to High Jump, and this is now the only ability that grants Dive Ready and subsequently builds eye stacks. But before you panic, the number of stacks required to enter Life of the Dragon has been reduced from 3 to 2, so you can start blasting out Nostrons just 30 seconds after that first jump, as always. At level 76, we acquire a new trait called Lance Mastery 2, which boosts the potency of True Thrust and Vorpal Thrust, but more interestingly, it rewards us for successfully hitting the positionals for Fang and Claw and Wheeling Thrust. If both positionals are met one after the other, we become Raiden Thrust Ready, which means that our next combo opening True Thrust is replaced with the more powerful equivalent, Raiden Thrust. Things also get just a little more flashy now during Life of the Dragon, with the inclusion of a superpowered version of Dragonfire called Star Diver. It's only available during Life of the Dragon, but it looks fantastic, does more single target damage than full thrust, and has a cooldown of 30 seconds, which is incidentally the same maximum amount of time that Life of the Dragon lasts for. I haven't had a chance to experiment with this, but I suspect it may just be possible to squeeze 2 Star Divers into a single life window if you hit it on the very first and very last second. But we'll find out pretty soon whether or not this is possible. One of the biggest additions that has been announced for Shadowbringers' battle system is the new charged actions that gain stacks for each recast time with a maximum limit. I was a little surprised to find that High Jump was not included in these actions. It would have been really great if we could gain, say, 2 stacks of jump during fight transition, ready to blow straight into Life of the Dragon once we re-engaged. It was pretty nice to see that we can hold 2 stacks of True North, however, to save for those high movement phases in which possessionals are easily missed. But hey, maybe more Dragoon actions will have these charges in the final build. Or maybe they'll actually remove Dragon Sight, the one ability we were really hoping to not see today. In case you're wondering, it hasn't changed. Then we've got AoE. Dragoon's AoE rotation has evolved from spamming Doom Spike and Sonic Thrust back to back, to Doom Spike into Sonic Thrust into Coearthen Torment, a new weapon skill unlocked at level 72. Each of the latter two will increase Chub of the Dragon by 10 seconds. Given that all TP costs have been removed and subsequently our AoE rotation can be maintained indefinitely, Dragoon should be capable of pushing pretty decent AoE DPS. Let's take a quick lore sidebar for those interested. Given that all dragons on the first are descended from Midgard's armor, and as far as we know, none of Midi's brood had travelled to Novrand, the existence of Dragoons or their equivalent on the first was bound to be a curiosity. The new Dragoon AF set is called Terra Slaver. Not Slayer, but Slaver with a V. A pterosaur is of course a winged dinosaur, so could it be that Novrant's equivalent of dragonkind is just an evolution of ancient scalekin as opposed to the hyper-intelligent worms of Heidelin? Or is it a misconception? Are these the descendants of Vertra or Azdaja having fled to Novrant to escape the fate of their Mericidian cousins only to be similarly slaughtered and enslaved anyway? It seems that there's going to be an equally complicated relationship between man and dragons or pterosaurs on the first as on the source. Hopefully one that we'll get to explore at some point. To recapitulate, Dragoon feels reasonably unmolested from Stormblood, and I think most of us will agree that this is a good thing. Life of the Dragon feels a little more flashy, and observing positionals a little more rewarding. Skill bloat has been addressed with the redundancies of heavy thrust and impulse drive. The missing GCD from the former is quickly forgotten. Dragon Sight still feels like arse. I know I'm not alone in wishing it had been replaced or adjusted, but it's been tolerable enough so far, and this build is from April, so hey, who knows what it'll look like in July. But that's it for this Shadowbringers Advanced Dragoon preview. You can check out a link for the Dragoon perspective of the level 73 dungeon Don Meg at the end of the video, along with more preview content including Dancer and Gunbreaker footage, my chat with Yoshida, and tours of the new zones. Thanks very much to the Final Fantasy XIV EU team for accommodating me on the media tour, and thanks to Red Bull for facilitating the trip. If you'd like to check out my article for Red Bull, then you can find it in the description below. Thanks all for watching. I'll catch you in Novrant very soon.